Hey! Radio Moment.
Crypto Twitter is an important phenomena. Some people still think it is debating about the best technology or the appropriate economic model, but it is not. This phenomena goes deep into the human psyche of social structures. Daniel Croix has written a very important essay called "It's Not About the Technology, It's About the Money." It was published on the Satoshi Nakamoto Institute website, which is probably a central cornerstone of the intellectual elite that crusades against those who aren't believing in Bitcoin yet, or those who promote an alternative crypto project that claims to solve fundamental problems of humanity. This essay is truly outstanding, and it is not surprising that the free thinker and writer was alienated from the Bitcoin community once he started to question how the whole project, including the wider Twitter community, evolved. Daniel Croix highlights in this essay that maybe the most important aspect to Bitcoin is what he calls a collective hallucination. This means that humans collectively believe in Bitcoin and its value to its society. It's not about the technology, it's about an old narrative dressed up in new cloths. Bitcoin is the emperor's new cloths. This analysis exposes more than just a trap which engulfs time and energy that might be used for more pressing needs. It exposes the root of a lie that was planted within the Enlightenment movement. This lie was suggesting that humanity, each individual, would be able to overcome its instincts if each individual would make use of its rational apparatus in order to cut through the fog of emotions. Rationality would grant us free will. Until today, only few people realize that this is exactly the same narrative that was described by Adam and Eve. But what was missing in the story of the Enlightenment movement compared to Adam and Eve, or what was drowned in the screams of raging propagators of this movement, was that there are trade-offs. Once we decide to act rational, we have to dissociate from our emotions to a certain extent. We have to dissociate from the universal love. We have to dissociate from paradise. Pure free will at its pivotal point means being isolated from the universal love. Therefore, over the years, the Enlightenment movement has created an ever-increasing void of love. Until today, this void hasn't been filled. On the contrary, as a great part of humanity doesn't realize the lie, the vacuum is growing, and by the same time more and more technology is necessary to compensate the void. But what has Bitcoin to do with that void? Bitcoin is not only trying to fill up that void, Bitcoin is a proof for the self-proclaimed developed world, lacking trust and love. In Code We Trust is the outcry of confused children screaming for love. Bitcoin fixes this as a desperate attempt to unload one's responsibility onto a technological vehicle that comfortably and autonomously carries the suffering of life. Bitcoin is the emperor's new cloth. Bitcoin as a technological construct is undoubtedly a brilliant achievement and does have a purpose in its own right. Whether as a mean of secure communication, an endeavor to substitute fiat money as a digital mean of exchange, or as digital store of value. But if Bitcoin serves as a new narrative of enlightenment, it will most likely fail due to increasing geopolitical tensions and the rising social pressure caused by climate change. It is completely irrelevant to the question how humanity will cope with climate change, and if climate change was caused by humans in the first place. The reason why Bitcoin will fail to provide an appropriate narrative is that the fundamentals of Bitcoin are based on game theory. Some might argue that game theory might be the most realistic descriptions of human interactions. But the truth is, the assumptions of game theory are solely based on materialism. The moment a group of individuals is dominated by a hallucinated belief system, this group doesn't act according to the rules of game theory. And this is exactly the contradiction within Bitcoin. Although it is based on some of the most advanced cryptographic technologies and applies game theory at the level of its core concept, to enter the life of real people, it has to necessitates the vehicle of a collective hallucination that people start to associate with, that people might even love. But in this case, the collective hallucination is game theory, which is in itself pure materialism. But if a collective hallucination is based on materialism, you can't overcome the status quo. The believers are kept greedy. That's why you are stuck. To reach your full rational capacities, you have to overcome greed. That is the only way to activate the brain parts that are responsible for rational thinking, and to let them dominate your train of thoughts. With game theory and greed as a fundamental assumption, you create a vicious cycle. Certain hallucination is almost purely cynical, And this hallucination at the same time overrides the principles of game theory. That is why it is not surprising how toxic crypto Twitter has gotten. It is cynical, since the drug dealers who create the hallucination pretend to convey the truth. But they subconsciously know that it is a lie. The only truth that gets close to reality is the truth that resonates and corresponds with the hallucination of love. Game theory is not based on love. It is based on greed. And that is the most dangerous ingredient when it comes to deal with climate change and increasing geopolitical tensions. Machiavelli made clear that it comes down to two methods to rule the world, either through tyranny or through love. If crypto Twitter continues on the path of tyranny, Bitcoin is the emperor's new cloth.